It was nearly 11:45 p.m. when Lucas Braden, the CEO of Avenir Tech, a billion-dollar software company, swiped his keycard at the back entrance of the main office building. Most of the lights were dimmed, the halls quiet. He rarely visited at this hour, but tonight was different. He had stayed late on a video call with investors in Japan and wanted to see firsthand the buzz he'd heard from security reports and late-night managers, an employee, a young woman working back-to-back shifts nearly every day for the past 3 weeks. A name kept popping up, Eva Martinez. He didn't know her personally, of course. CEOs in companies this size rarely knew all their staff. But something about her file caught his attention. 2 departments, customer support and janitorial services. Both full-time. That wasn't normal. As he walked quietly past the break room, he heard soft humming and the rhythmic sound of a mop dragging across tile. He paused by the doorway and peered inside. There she was. A young woman, maybe in her mid-20s, with dark circles under her eyes and hair tied into a messy bun, was scrubbing a stubborn coffee stain off the floor. Her movements were slow but focused. Just then, she stood up, stretched her sore back, and walked over to the vending machine. She pulled out a few crumpled dollar bills and inserted them, one by one. The machine blinked red, rejecting the last bill. She sighed, lightly tapped it, tried again. Still no luck. Eventually, she gave up and walked away empty-handed. Lucas stood frozen, watching. She hadn't seen him. Something in his chest stirred, not pity exactly, but concern. He turned and left before she noticed him. The next day, he asked HR to pull up Eva's employee file. Single. No emergency contact listed. 2 siblings under 18 mentioned in insurance dependents. Live 17 miles outside the city in a zone not covered by public transport. That explained the late-night shifts, and probably the desperation. But what gnawed at him more was a brief note in the file: employee requested access to cafeteria meal vouchers after asking supervisor if she could take uneaten food home. That hit hard. Lucas had grown up in a struggling household himself, though few knew that. His mother had cleaned houses, and he remembered nights of empty fridges and watery soup. He had promised himself that when he made it, he would treat people better, with dignity. Had he failed? That afternoon, Lucas called his assistant to clear his evening schedule. "I'm going to follow someone home," he said plainly. "Sir?" She blinked, unsure if she'd heard correctly. He gave a half-smile. "Don't worry. I'm not being creepy. I need to understand something. That's all." At 10:30 p.m., Lucas waited in his parked car across from the Avenir Tech rear exit. The street was mostly deserted, city lights glowing in the distance. Around 11:15, he saw Eva exit with a small tote bag and a weary gait. She didn't call an Uber. Didn't walk to a nearby bus stop. Instead, she crossed into the alley, unlocked an old bicycle chained to a rusty post, and began pedaling into the night. Lucas followed at a distance, headlights off. She rode for miles, through uneven streets, past dark neighborhoods, uphill stretches that would exhaust even a seasoned biker. After nearly an hour, she finally turned into a trailer park just off a desolate highway. He parked his car a block away and approached on foot. From behind a bush, he watched her walk up to a small, dented mobile home. A flicker of warm light came from inside. As she stepped through the door, it opened before she could knock. 2 young children, a girl around 12 and a boy maybe 8, ran into her arms. She hugged them tightly, setting her bag down and pulling out a single sandwich wrapped in napkins. She split it between them. Lucas swallowed hard. Then, a voice. Soft, trembling, from a couch inside. "Eva, you home?" It was an older woman, frail and clearly ill, sitting upright with an oxygen tube around her nose. Eva hurried over and gently held her hand. "I'm here, Mama. We're okay. She disappeared into a tiny kitchen and returned with water, adjusting her mom's pillow and checking her meds. No complaints. No bitterness. Just care. Lucas took a step back. Something had shifted inside him. Whatever he thought this would be, he hadn't been ready for this. The next morning, Lucas arrived early at the office. He summoned the head of HR, the cafeteria manager, and the director of operations into a closed-door meeting. I want to start an emergency assistance fund. Quiet. No publicity. And I want a direct line for employees to report if they're working multiple jobs to survive. But that's a huge initiative, one of them replied. We'd have to. We need to, Lucas cut in, his tone firm. And we're starting with Eva Martinez. Later that afternoon, Eva received an email summoning her to the executive floor, a place she'd never even dreamed of setting foot in. Her hands trembled as she knocked on the door. Come in, Lucas said. She stepped inside, nervous, eyes wide. Miss Martinez, he began gently, please, have a seat. She nodded and sat at the edge of the chair, still in her janitor uniform. I wanted to thank you. For your hard work, your resilience, and your dedication. I saw your request for leftover cafeteria food. I'm sorry it ever had to come to that. She looked down, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. I didn't mean to break any rules. My siblings, we don't have much, and Mom's been sick. He nodded. I know, he said softly. That's why I've approved full medical coverage for your mother, including home care support. And from today, you're being transferred to a permanent position in our customer care tech division, with a raise and flexible hours. You're overqualified for janitorial work, your file shows top evaluations and a degree you never mentioned. Tears filled her eyes. I didn't think it mattered. I just needed a job. Any job. It matters, Lucas replied. And there's more. We're setting up a fund to help employees like you who fall through the cracks. You'll be the first advisor on the board. Eva covered her mouth, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep being the kind of person who inspires the rest of us. She stood up, wiping her eyes. Thank you, sir. You don't know what this means. Lucas walked her out personally, watching her disappear into the elevator, lighter than he had ever seen her. Months passed. Eva's life transformed. Her mother's health stabilized with regular treatments. Her siblings started school with proper supplies, clean clothes, and full stomachs. At work, she quickly became one of the most respected voices in the employee outreach program. People listened when she spoke, not because of her title, but because she understood. She had lived it. Lucas continued visiting the late shift, not as a CEO inspecting staff, but as a leader reconnecting with his roots. Every so often, he'd pass Eva in the hall, and they'd exchange a knowing nod. One Friday afternoon, he received an envelope on his desk. Inside was a handwritten note. You followed me when I thought no one saw me. You saw me when I felt invisible. You changed our lives. Thank you for believing that kindness still matters. It was unsigned, but he didn't need a name. He folded the letter and placed it in the drawer next to a photo of his mother, a woman who had once cleaned offices just like Eva, never knowing that one day her son would have the power to make sure no one like her was forgotten again. That night, Lucas drove out to the trailer park. But this time, he wasn't hiding. He parked right in front of Eva's home. The porch lights were on, and laughter spilled from the windows. He knocked gently. Eva opened the door, surprised. Mr. Brayden. Lucas, he smiled. I was in the area. Thought I'd drop this off. He handed her a small box, a framed certificate for Employee Advocate of the Year. You earned it, he said. Behind her, her siblings waved shyly. Her mom, now stronger, stood with a cane and a proud smile. You coming in? Eva asked. He paused, then stepped inside. The trailer was still modest. But it was filled with warmth, with life, with hope. Sometimes, all it takes is one act of awareness, one decision to see someone, to change everything. And for Lucas Braden, the night he followed a tired young woman home had not only opened his eyes. It had healed something in him too.